My wife got drunk in Vegas and sent me a selfie saying she married her boss. But when she landed, she found out I'd frozen our accounts, called my lawyer, and had the police waiting. I used to think the worst kind of betrayal was the kind you suspected but could never prove. That nagging gut feeling you try to silence, convincing yourself you're just being insecure. That was my life with Julia for months before Vegas. Julia and I had been married for 6 years. At first, things were good, great even. She was charming, ambitious, the kind of woman who could walk into a room and own it. But as time went on, something shifted. She started spending more nights out with the girls, taking more work trips that felt more like vacations than conferences, and coming home later and later with flimsy excuses. I told myself it was just stress. I told myself marriage wasn't always fireworks and honeymoon phases. But deep down, something gnawed at me. Her new boss, Greg, didn't help. He was the type of guy who treated the office like his personal dating pool, 10 year-round, hair too black to be natural, Rolex flashing every time he raised his glass. Julia would casually drop his name into conversation, usually while praising some perk of her job. Greg upgraded our hotel rooms this time. Greg wants me to lead the team at the retreat. Greg says I have real leadership potential. It didn't sound like work admiration. It sounded like she was trying to convince herself of something. So when Julia announced she'd be going to Vegas for a team bonding trip, I didn't say no. I just nodded and said, "Have fun." But inside, the pit in my stomach grew heavier. The night it happened, I was sitting at home, half watching some mindless Netflix show, half scrolling through emails. It was around midnight when my phone buzzed. A message from Julia. I expected maybe a drunk group shot. Maybe her complaining about losing money at the blackjack table. Instead, what I saw made my blood run cold. It was a selfie, blurry, clearly taken after more than a few drinks. Julia was leaning against Greg, her sparkly dress slipping off her shoulder. He had his arm draped around her waist like she was already his. Her lipstick was smudged, her eyes glazed. The caption hit me like a punch. Married my boss. Don't wait up, winking face, ring clinking glasses. I stared at the screen so long I forgot to breathe. My first instinct was denial. Maybe it was a joke? A stupid drunken prank? Then came the second message. Another photo. This time, Julia held up a flimsy-looking marriage certificate, the kind Vegas chapels print on the spot. On her finger was a cheap, oversized ring. Her grin was wide, careless, triumphant. And then it hit me. It wasn't a joke. It was real. My chest tightened, my hands trembled, and my thoughts spun. 6 years of marriage, hundreds of late-night talks, vacations, birthdays, Christmas mornings together, gone with one drunken decision and a caption sent to the wrong person. Or maybe not the wrong person, because Julia hadn't just sent it to me. She'd blasted it to a group chat, one that included me, her sister, and several of her friends. Thanks to iCloud syncing, the photos were already lighting up my laptop screen as well. The betrayal wasn't just private. It was public. For a long minute, I just sat there. I could have screamed. I could have thrown the phone. I could have driven to Vegas and made a scene. But instead, a strange calm washed over me. Not anger. Not grief. Something colder. Clarity. I typed a single word back to her. Perfect. No questions. No demands. No begging. Then I got to work. I logged into our joint bank accounts and started moving everything. Years of careful saving and investments. Every dollar went into accounts with only my name on them. The joint cards? Frozen. The checking account? Cleared. It was easier than I thought it would be. We'd signed a prenup years ago, back when I inherited my grandfather's house and trust fund. At the time, Julia had brushed it off, saying, "Of course, babe, whatever makes you feel secure." Funny how the thing she signed so casually was now my iron shield. By the time I finished, Julia had sent another message. "LOL babe, relax, it's just for fun, face with tears of joy." And another. "Seriously, don't freak out, it's a Vegas thing. Nothing real." But I wasn't listening anymore. I had already called my lawyer. It was late, but he picked up after the second ring. When I told him what happened, I half expected him to sound shocked, maybe even hesitant. Instead, his voice was steady, almost bored, as if he'd seen this exact scenario a dozen times. After I finished, he paused for only a second before saying 4 words that set everything in motion. "She just made it easy." And for the first time that night, I almost smiled. Because he was right. Julia must have thought she was being clever. Or maybe she was just too drunk to realize the consequences of her little joke. Either way, while she was drinking champagne with Greg in Vegas, I was dismantling her world back home, piece by piece. Her first few messages after the selfie were defensive. Babe, seriously, don't be mad. It's just for fun. Come on. It's Vegas faced with tears of joy. Everyone does crazy stuff here. It's not even legal. Chill out. But when I didn't answer, her tone shifted. Don't be weird about this. Why aren't you replying? You're ruining the vibe right now. Ruining her vibe. That was Julia in a nutshell. Her world, her rules, her fun. Everyone else was supposed to play along. I didn't reply. Instead, I started combing through her digital trail. Julia was careless with her phone and laptop, always leaving accounts logged in. Over the years, I'd ignored a lot of little red flags. Messages that looked too flirty, late-night notifications she claimed were work emails, travel receipts that didn't quite match her story. Now I opened everything with a clear head. It didn't take long to find what I needed. There were dozens of texts between her and Greg. Flirtation that escalated into full-blown sexting. Hotel bookings for two, on business trips she swore were solo. And worst of all, screenshots she'd sent to a friend bragging about how Greg was way more exciting than a boring husband who just works and saves money. That last one stung, but it also steeled my resolve. Because I realized something. She didn't just make a mistake in Vegas. She'd been planning her exit for a while. She just hadn't expected me to find out this way. By 3 a.m., I had exported every incriminating message, every hotel invoice, every picture. I organized them neatly into folders, time-stamped and cross-referenced. My lawyer would eat this up. Meanwhile, Julia was still partying. Her Instagram lit up with posts. A blurry video of her singing off-key into a karaoke mic, a boomerang of her clinking glasses with Greg, a shot of her throwing chips at a roulette table like she owned the place. The comments poured in. OMG, you're glowing. Yes, boss babe. Living your best life. Not a single one of them knew she had just detonated her marriage. The next morning, she FaceTimed me. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text. Why are you being such a child? You know Vegas weddings aren't real. Everyone thought it was hilarious. 10 minutes after that. Seriously, you're embarrassing me right now. Greg says you need to lighten up. Greg. She was invoking him like he was some authority in our marriage. I didn't take the bait. I just forwarded everything I had collected to my lawyer. He promised me two things. One, the prenup meant Julia wouldn't get a dime. And two, if she had spent any marital assets on her affair, we could claw them back. But I wanted more than just divorce. I wanted her exposed. So I made another call, this time to a friend on the police force. I explained the situation, sent him the screenshots, and asked a simple question. When she lands back in town, can you make sure she's greeted properly? He didn't hesitate. If she shows up with a fake marriage license, that's attempted bigamy. Even if it's not valid, it's still paperwork fraud. We'll have grounds to pull her in for questioning. That was all I needed. While Julia was still posting poolside selfies in a bikini Greg had probably bought her, I was filing paperwork, locking down finances, and making sure every legal weapon was pointed directly at her. The irony was, she thought she was winning. Her last set of messages before her flight said it all. You seriously need to get over yourself. I had the best weekend of my life. Greg and I are such a power couple. Everyone says we're perfect together. Don't wait up when I land. I'll just go straight to the office with him anyway. A power couple. She really believed she was upgrading. I didn't reply, because why waste words on someone who had already buried herself? Instead, I booked a meeting with my lawyer for the day after her return. He assured me we'd file immediately, and that with the evidence I had, the judge would side with me on everything: assets, property, even the house. Julia thought she was flying home to a husband she could manipulate into forgiving her. She had no idea that by the time her plane touched down, she'd be walking straight into a trap. And when the police cuffs clicked around her wrists at the airport gate, I wanted her to finally understand one thing. She hadn't married her boss in Vegas. She had divorced me. Update 1. Julia's flight landed on a cloudy Thursday afternoon. She must have been exhausted, though the photos she'd posted before boarding told a different story. One last champagne toast in the airport lounge. One last picture of Greg kissing her cheek with the caption, "Back to reality, but what a ride, two hearts." Reality was about to hit harder than her hangover. I stood near the arrival gate, not to greet her, but to watch. My friend from the police department had arranged everything. Two plainclothes officers waited just beyond the rope line, casually sipping coffee and blending in with the crowd. When Julia finally appeared, she looked like a caricature of herself, sunglasses too big for her face, designer bag slung over one shoulder, dragging a carry-on with glittery stickers she'd probably added in Vegas. She scanned the crowd, clearly expecting me to be there with flowers, or at the very least, anger ready to be soothed by her practiced pout. Instead, she found nothing. And then the officers stepped forward. "Julia Carter," one of them said. She froze. Yes. We need you to come with us. You're being detained for questioning regarding fraudulent documentation and suspected bigamy." The color drained from her face. "Wait, what? This is insane. There must be a mistake." The officer held up a printed copy of the marriage license she and Greg had signed at the Vegas chapel. "Is this your signature?" Julia sputtered. "That was a joke. It wasn't real." "Ma'am, you can explain everything downtown." Gasps rippled through the small crowd of onlookers. People whispered, phones lifted discreetly to record. Julia's best weekend ever had just turned into a public humiliation reel. She looked around desperately, and then she saw me. I didn't move. I just stood a few feet back, arms crossed, meeting her eyes with the calm she hated. The kind of calm that told her everything was already decided, that she had no control left. "Ethan!" she screeched, trying to lunge toward me. But the officer gently pulled her back. Tell them this is nothing. Why are you just standing there?" I finally spoke, my voice low but carrying. "Because I don't have to explain anymore, Julia. You did that yourself." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just panic. The officers escorted her past the gate and toward a side hallway. She twisted to look back at me one last time, sunglasses slipping down her nose, exposing tear-streaked cheeks. For a brief moment, I almost felt pity. Almost. But then I remembered every text, every laugh she shared with Greg at my expense, every dollar of our joint savings she blew on trips I thought were for work. No, pity wasn't the right emotion. Relief was. At the station, things got worse for her. My lawyer and I had already provided the district attorney with a tidy packet of evidence. The fake marriage license, the social media posts, the financial records showing Julia used marital funds to finance her business trips with Greg. The DA's office took it seriously. Fraud is fraud, even if you do it drunk in Vegas. Julia was held for questioning for several hours. I didn't wait at the station. I went home, opened a beer, and sat in the very chair where she once told me I was boring for not wanting to party every weekend. When the phone rang that evening, it was her. The call came from the holding facility. "Ethan, please, this has gone too far," she sobbed. "They're treating me like a criminal. You have to fix this." "I don't have to do anything," I said evenly. "You wanted excitement, Julia. You wanted to be out of my league. Congratulations, you're officially out. You can't just throw away our marriage over this," she shrieked. "Funny," I replied. "That's exactly what you did in Vegas." There was silence on the line. Then a weak whisper. "I made a mistake." "No," I said, leaning back in my chair. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is leaving the oven on. What you did was a choice. Repeated choices, actually. And now you get to live with them." I hung up. The fallout spread quickly. Her friends, the same ones who cheered her boss babe energy on Instagram, started deleting their supportive comments once the arrest news leaked. Screenshots of her marriage selfie with Greg resurfaced everywhere, this time not as a joke, but as evidence. At work, Greg wasn't laughing either. HR got wind of the scandal, and suddenly office romance turned into a liability nightmare. I heard through contacts that he was placed on immediate leave pending investigation. Julia's dream of being part of a power couple had collapsed in less than a week. As for me, I slept better than I had in years. My lawyer filed the divorce paperwork first thing the next morning. With the prenup and the financial evidence, it was clean and brutal. Julia wouldn't touch my savings, the house, or even the dog. By Friday evening, I'd already changed the locks. So when Julia was finally released, shaken, humiliated, and without her job security, she didn't come home. She couldn't. Her keys no longer worked. Her marriage no longer existed. Her reputation no longer sparkled. All because of one drunken selfie. And the best part? I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg or argue or demand. I just said, "Perfect." And let the truth do the rest. Final update. The silence in the house was different now. Not the heavy, uncomfortable silence that used to linger after Julia's tantrums. This was peace. Real, unshakable peace. For the first time in years, I woke up without tension gnawing at my chest. No dread of another pointless argument. No fear of finding a mysterious charge on the credit card. Just me, black coffee, and a sunrise that didn't feel wasted. The divorce had gone through faster than even my lawyer predicted. With all the evidence stacked against her, Julia's side had no leverage. She walked away with nothing but the clothes she'd taken to Vegas and a few suitcases of luxury items, most of which she tried to sell online within a week. I watched from a distance. My friends sent me links. Julia pawning handbags and jewelry on Facebook Marketplace with captions like, lightly used, great condition. The same bags she once bragged about as investments. She'd messaged me a few times since the fallout. The first messages were fiery. You think you've won? Everyone's going to know you're bitter and pathetic. Nobody respects men who air dirty laundry. Then, after the media dust settled, her tone shifted. Ethan, can we please talk? I miss you. I miss us. We can fix this. It was just Vegas. It didn't mean anything. The last one came 3 weeks after she lost her job entirely. I'm staying at my mom's. Things are really hard right now. I don't know where to turn. Please, can we at least meet for coffee? I didn't respond to any of them. Not out of cruelty, but because there was nothing left to say. Meanwhile, life moved forward for me. Work was steady. With fewer distractions, I poured myself into projects I'd put off for years. My promotion finally came through, ironically in the same month Julia lost her position. My boss told me he'd noticed a clarity in my work recently, like I wasn't being weighed down anymore. He was right. Socially, things shifted too. Friends who had kept their distance when Julia dominated every gathering suddenly wanted to reconnect. I realized just how much of my world she had consumed, and how many people had tiptoed around her ego for my sake. I went to a barbecue at an old friend's house one Saturday. Nothing fancy, just burgers, beers, and kids running around the backyard. But I remember sitting there, laughing, feeling lighter, when it hit me. This was what Julia had called boring. To me, it felt like freedom. But Julia wasn't done trying. One evening, months later, I came home to find her car parked across the street. She sat inside, staring at the house she no longer had a key to. I didn't go over. I let her stew. The next day, she bumped into me at the grocery store. She had traded her designer wardrobe for plain jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair tied back, face bare of the makeup she once refused to leave the house without. Ethan, she said softly, almost rehearsed. You look good. I nodded. Thanks. She bit her lip. I've been reflecting. I know I messed up. Greg was a mistake. Everything was a mistake. I let myself get caught up in things that didn't matter. But you were steady. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, I saw the girl I'd fallen for years ago. The one who used to curl up next to me on the couch and dream about building a life together. But the truth was simple. That girl was gone, replaced by someone who valued status and attention more than loyalty. Julia, I said quietly, I don't hate you, but I don't trust you. And without trust, there's nothing left. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Goodbye, Julia. And I walked away. She didn't follow. Months turned into a year. I started dating again, not recklessly, but carefully. I met someone through a mutual friend, a woman named Claire who worked in nonprofit fundraising. She wasn't flashy. She didn't measure her worth in handbags or vacation selfies. She asked questions and listened to the answers. She laughed at my bad jokes, and she never once made me feel boring for wanting a quiet night in. With Claire, I rediscovered something Julia had stripped from me, the joy of simple companionship. We built our relationship slowly, with honesty at the center. She knew about Julia. She even knew about Vegas, the arrest, all of it. Instead of recoiling, she squeezed my hand and said, Sounds like you went through hell, but you came out stronger. That's what matters. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear that. And Julia? Her name popped up in the news once more. Greg had sued her for defamation after she blamed him for tricking her into the fake marriage. The case fizzled out, but the damage was done. She became a running joke online, her face attached to memes about Vegas decisions gone wrong. Every time I saw one, I felt nothing. No anger, No satisfaction. Just distance. Like reading a story about a stranger. Because that's what she was now. A stranger. One night, as Claire and I sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the trees, she asked, "Do you ever think about her?" I thought for a long moment, then shook my head. Not really. She's just part of the past. Claire smiled and leaned against me. Good. Because the future looks better. And she was right. Julia had once told me I wasn't worth respecting. That she'd married down. That excitement mattered more than stability. But in the end, it was stability, the very thing she mocked, that gave me everything she lost. Peace, respect, and a future worth living. I raised my glass that night, not to toast revenge or vindication, but freedom. Because the truth is, the moment I stopped chasing her chaos, I finally found myself again. And that was better than any victory.